Kevin George on the stage, who's a global director and information services of Expeditors. Kevin has been a technology thought leader with more than 20 plus years of experience, and he heads the Technology Center for Expeditors, and he's the author of the Digital First, and he's a column writer in Forbes. Erstwhile, he has worked with Gartner as a CXO advisor, and he's been a key person in setting up the Technology Center for AstraZeneca, and lot more contributions of Kevin, which CII and NASCOM with this association, which the whole industry would know, and not what Murphy talk. So welcome, Kevin. And next, then the speaker for the fireside chat, I'm happy to invite Ms. Sindhu Gangadharan, the SVP and MD of SAP Labs. Sindhu has also headed the SAP user enablement. So with this combination of experts, we are gonna spark up a good fireside chat. Over to you, Kevin.
Thank you, Guhan. Thank you very much. Normally the fireside chat, it should be like this, but I have to adjust myself and try to. Yeah. Welcome you all. Vanakkam Chennai. Hope you all had a nice lunch and be here. Today, the discussion for next 20-25 minutes predominantly centered around the Global Capability Centers, or GCCs. Jokingly in the lunch, we were talking about GCC. Some may think that is like Greater Chennai Corporation, right? So I thought of setting in a context of what is GCC is all about. 40 years back, the outsourcing took a great stride, we all know. And there are two concepts that are right. One is the offshoring, where they move the work to a third-party service provider. Second is the captive offshoring, where they set up their own foreign units in a foreign country. Then this captive offshoring evolved into a captive center, then became a global in-house center. And today we call that as a global capability center, the true nature of the global talent the country and the state has. Yeah, pretty short about the state. State today pretty much contributes around $7 billion to the GSDP of the state government. And we have close to 200 plus GCCs as well in the state and whatnot, 150,000 engineers, and I can list down all the great things about the state. And that's one of the reasons Tamil Nadu has been the preferred destination to set up those GCCs. Now, it's a great honor, Sindhu. You come here all the way from Bangalore, and absolutely privileged. And you've been part of the GCC community for a long time, and you're heading a fantastic organization. More than that, it is so inspiring. It's about leadership, what you're doing in the organization, inside and outside. Maybe I'll just start with asking about one personal question. Absolutely, right? So sometimes there are moments happen in the life that might have changed you to become an inspirational leader to continue to excel in your professional journey, right? What could be that moment or the turning point in your life that has led all the way what you are today?
No, first of all, Kevin and all of you, it's really great to be here in Chennai. It's always great to be back in Chennai. And I still remember the conversation with Mr. Vishnu. This was back in October when the NASCOM EC was having our meetup here, where he said, hey, we're having this event and we need you to be there. And I'm so glad this has worked out. And today it's brilliant to see the kind of energy that's filling the whole of the morning. And Kevin, to your question on GCCs and the evolution of GCCs, really looking forward to this conversation and fireside chat. But I know you asked a very personal question in terms of turning point and what is kind of lot of turning points, I'd say, Kevin. But one thing which definitely stands out and something which has always stood for me as a point where I was when I was in the headquarters, and I spent 18 years of my career at SAP at the headquarters in Waldorf. I don't know how many of you know the headquarters of SAP, and this was around 2018, I think, no, 2017, if I remember right, where I was given the opportunity to to lead the Intelligent Enterprise program for SAP, right? And why this was a turning point, I'll tell you, and something maybe for some of you to take away with you, definitely something which was relevant for me was back then I was owning up an entire integration suite of products, and the role which I was given was to really go across our lines of business and kind of drive the technology harmonization across our lines of business. And if you think through it, right, technology harmonization meant always about going into our lines of business and convincing each business owner about why the technology harmonization needed to be done. But from a personal point of view, for me, that role meant giving up everything that I stood for in terms of ownership of products and really going into more of a steering and governance and convincing and working with the chief technology officer of SAP. Now, why I'm telling you this is, I still remember, Kevin, a lot of folks telling me, hey, that's not something that you should be doing as a head of product management for the world from India. And a lot of things have contributed to that, Kevin. I mean, definitely the engineering prowess. If you just look at some of the sheer numbers, right? Today, the interesting combination is also the fact that the market is here, the talent is here. It's the fastest growing region for so many of our organizations as we speak. So the markets have also shifted from the west to the east as we speak today. And if you just look at the sheer numbers, right? Fastest growing economy, second largest digital economy, top 3 countries in the world when we talk about STEM talent, a fastest growing startup ecosystem. I mean, if you just look at the SaaS market opportunity that exists in the country, we are talking about $1 trillion SaaS market opportunity by 2030. That's phenomenal if you think about what is the potential in terms of tapping into that. We talked about global leadership roles. Today, we are talking about over 5,000 plus global leadership roles that is in from GCCs from India for the world. And that number is only bound to grow to 20,000 by 2030, right? And today, the GCCs in India are also being tasked to set up GCCs in other locations. And that also shows that the trust, that domain expertise, that capability building that has happened over the years. And not to forget, Kevin, the trust building is an important factor where that switch has happened completely from looking at India. If I just look 15 years back, it was purely driven from, hey, how do I look at it from a cost arbitrage? Today, that's completely gone, right? It's gone into skill arbitrage. It's gone into leadership arbitrage as we speak. So that's the kind of transformation that's happening. And if I, again, also come back to the numbers, we're talking about a growth of GCCs just in 2025, 1,900 plus GCCs, tapping into a talent pool of over 2 million as we speak, and also looking at a market size of over 60 billion. So that's the kind of the growth that we are happening in this space.
That's phenomenal. I think somewhere from a 35 billion to a 60 billion in next couple of years sounds very promising, and 1,900 GCCs. One question further on that, Sindhu, you talked about the global leadership roles and the kind of opportunity that lies. Talked about from a 5,000 to 20,000 next couple of years. We have a lot of budding GCC leaders present in the room. What would be your advice for them to scale up to that global leadership roles that GCCs may bring in this near opportunity?
Yeah, first of all, I think what is happening, Kevin, is markets are shifting, like I said, right? So earlier the markets were in the West. I mean, if I just put on my SAP hat for a minute, for us, India is one of our fastest growing markets. So it's really a unique combination for us to tap into, to have that engineering prowess coupled with the fact that the customers are right here. I was just having the conversation earlier on with Pari, whom you'll also listen to in a bit, but that whole gap between engineering and the end user, right? Earlier, we were always talking about, hey, building parts of the large products and always working with product managers sitting possibly in different parts of the world. But today, that's completely changing, right? We are talking about product managers sitting right here in India, owning big parts of the portfolio, working with customers who walk into our capability centers, trying to understand how the roadmap is evolving, influencing the roadmap as we build our products, really working with the designers, with the architects, with the engineers to really shape those products to the various industries that we support. So that's a big shift that's happening in terms of the market moving, and with that market moving, also that center of influence also moves, right? And so that's very important, that when the centers of influence also moves, that connect with your end user becomes a lot more stronger and a lot more based on a very trusted relationship. That's one. Second thing, Kevin, what is also important to understand is when you're looking at getting in new talent, right? Young talent. Today's talent values a lot more that autonomy, values that ownership. I mean, if you're talking about getting the best talent, it's also equally important. How do you retain the best talent, right? And the only way you can retain the best talent is to really bring them into those core end-to-end product ownership roles where they feel empowered to drive the product in its entirety. The third piece, Kevin, is also today we have a phenomenal ecosystem here. It's, I mean, just coupled with the GCCs, we have a phenomenal partner ecosystem, the ISVs, the independents, the SIs, or the startups, the academia, and all of this provides a very unique mix in terms of how you leverage the strengths across all of these to your advantage, right? And that is also happening. How do you take that local ecosystem strengths and bring it into global value for your parent, but also for your end customers, which is also very, very important. And the fourth piece, not to forget, is when I talked about the fastest growing digital economy. When we're talking about leadership roles from here, understanding also consumption patterns, understanding in terms of how new technologies can be brought into different roles, right? That becomes very important. Today, 67% of the transactions here in India are digital. So you're already talking about an ecosystem which is very savvy when it comes to technology consumption. So you really have the opportunity to really bring that technology focus as well as that business focus combined. Having these in silos don't work anymore, right? And so from a global leadership roles, bringing that financial acumen to the products that you build, how do you take it to market, how do you commercialize that, how do you work with investors, all becomes important pieces of the conversation. So it's really a mix of all of that which really and truly drives those global leadership roles. And I think we have to do even more to really build out those visionary leaders in the organization, because finally it's only with that kind of visionary leaders that can you drive that change in your organization. No?
Yep. I think brilliant. That was top 4 pillars for the next generation of leaders. But when you talk about all these success, the movement, the next evolution of GCC is happening, the GCCs growing is a bit of a challenge. There are umpteen number of challenges the GCCs face today. From your perspective, what are those challenges? So what could be those advices to the leaders to overcome those challenges?
Well, I think if you ask me, there's no better time for GCCs in India than today, right? There's really no better time. But of course, we went through, definitely, when we're talking about the great numbers, of course, it went through a lot of transformation, a lot of change, a lot of challenges. And if I look back at some of the challenges, it's very clear, right? In the past, GCCs were clearly looked at as an extended workbench, right? Typically, if I just look back 20 years, the kind of roles or the areas that were, okay, you build a product, you take it to market, now we need to operate it. Okay, let's bring the operations into India. That was a typical pattern, right? So initially, the challenges were also about how do you drive business transformation, but at the same time, also look at cost efficiency. So this was definitely a challenge that you had to work through. Earlier, some of the challenges were also how do you look at new business models when you're talking about innovation with partners? Because many times when you're talking about co-innovation, it's also about joint IP. Now, how do you make sure that the IP is owned in the appropriate way? These academia to really make sure that we build out that talent who come out of universities with that right skills that is needed to deliver upon the promise that we've all committed to, right? So having that right focus on skilling and having the right talent becomes super important. Or if you look at large scale, very complex projects that of offshore delivery models, different models. And not to forget, how do you bridge cultural gaps? Many times this is something that is not talked about, but that's also a very important piece of the equation. How do you build that trust? How do you get the seat at the table? How do you drive those decisions? And all that can only happen if you understand what are the cultural gaps that exist and how do you bridge those gaps. So these are some things that I would highly recommend that you keep in mind and work through. I mean, today there are phenomenal examples of so many success stories. So I'd not recommend every new GCC to go through the similar pattern, because there are so many best practices that are shared also with NASSCOM, with Zinnov, that where we are sharing all of these best practices, which really equips all of you. There's services that are available for very, did you call it friction-free setting up of GCCs, in the words of Pari. So it's only in Chennai again, right? Yeah.
That's true. Actually, there was a news came out a couple of days, and many more are expanding, and many more are actually setting up their new centers in the state. Now, specifically, if I just move into the SAP, right? SAP Labs.
Home turf.
Yeah. So, what kind of strategic initiatives that you are driving within the SAP Labs India that is making a lot of change in your global enterprise?
Okay. I mean, how many of you here know about SAP? Okay, quite a few, and I'm very happy to see that. For Kevin, if you just look at SAP, last year was our 25 years of SAP in India, right? So we have 50 years of SAP in the world and 25 years in India. So we've come a long way in terms of a global capability center for SAP. And few facts to the table, right? Today, India is the largest R&D hub for SAP outside our headquarters. In fact, 40% of our global R&D for SAP, 40% of our global R&D workforce is sitting out of India for the world, right? And like I said earlier on as well, it's this unique combination that we have, we have the largest R&D hub combined with one of our fastest growing market regions, which makes it super exciting for us, India as a destination. And what is also very unique to India as compared to any other location of SAP, it's the only location of SAP where we have the entire breadth of our product portfolio in one location. And that becomes a very interesting opportunity for all our customers who walk into our offices pretty much every single day, because I mentioned earlier on that distance between an engineer, a product manager, an architect to the end customer is happening right here, right? So that distance. And I'm talking about global customers of SAP, right, who also have their global capability centers here, large practices driving their SAP implementations right here. So that conversations is happening every day. So for us, when we laid out our vision for SAP Labs, right, so we have hinged upon building innovations for the world centered around our people, driven by purpose and driven by the power of the ecosystem, Kevin, right? So that's key for us. And many of the initiatives that we have put into place is exactly focusing on that. Like, for example, a big part of our focus is on how do we drive customer centricity, collaboration, thought leadership, both internally as well as externally. How do we make sure that we have end-to-end product ownership? How do we drive that patents that are coming? So 25% of the patents that come out of SAP globally come out of India. So just to give you a little bit of that IP creation that I talked to you about. And so many of the initiatives are really hinged upon each of these pillars. Like, for example, if I talk about our One SAP initiative, where we don't distinguish between an engineer who's building the product and somebody who's sitting in our customer success teams. They have to work in unison with each other. They really look at working with it so that there's a deeper understanding of how the product is evolving, not just in the engineering minds, but also in our sales teams. So that combination, so that it's one way of how we get to our end customers. Or if I look at areas around how we are tapping into the the ecosystem. Today, India is one of the 8 locations of SAP where we have an innovation center network. What that means is this is where we are looking into technologies in the horizon of the next 3 to 5 years. Even if it might not have a direct impact on our product engineering today, just looking at these technologies from a research point of view and seeing how best those areas can map back into our product areas. Or our Startup Accelerator program. We have a buzzing Startup Accelerator program where we bring in startups according to various themes that we lay out every single year and really work with those startups and build those interlock between our product experts and these startups. Of course, on one hand, the startups get access to the markets that we operate in, but on the other hand, it's a huge value add for us because when we go to a customer, and if there are those niche areas which we don't invest in, we bring in a startup, but fully integrated into our core portfolio. Leadership building is again something that we put a lot of emphasis on, right? At various levels in the organization, mid-level, senior level, entry level, building that leadership skills, building that, like I mentioned earlier on, that business acumen combined with that strong technology acumen. So these are, I can go on and on about SAP, but I just want to say today we are 15,000 strong, present across India. As we speak, we are also setting up our second campus, which will, our target is to have even close to 15,000 additional hires if needed so, no? So that's the plan of growth.
Absolutely, that's quite impressive. One other thing, to make the moderator nervous, the organizers, what they do, suddenly they'll pop up the timer saying that you have 5 minutes more. That kind of, puts you on the spot. But definitely, I want to give an opportunity to the wonderful audience. You guys are patiently listening to us. If you have any questions, yes, please.
Hear me? Yeah. I'm Dr. Damodaran, a part of Ampara Diversity, where we focus on people with disability and kind of opportunity for them. So as the global capability centers kind of get set up, there'll be some global mandates for your own companies, right? Like saying these metrics are there. For example, when you talk about people with disability, when you want to, you'll have certain metrics there globally, let's say in the US. When you set it up in India, and if you don't find enough talent, there could be challenges there, gaps, right? For example, people with disability in engineering, especially in STEM talent, right? How are you looking to address those?
I think if you know SAP, Mr. Damodaran, we are one of the most inclusive organizations. In fact, we look at people with all kinds of abilities, right? I mean, we're really looking at hiring people across the spectrum, no matter what. Finally, what matters to us is what the person brings to the table and what is the role required from the person, right? Having said that, I mean, if you just look at some of our diversity numbers, 34% of our workforce is women, just as one example. We were one of the first ones in India, if not the world, to set up an Autism at Work program, just to give you one more example, right? I mean, today that is a global program across SAP, but not just as SAP, at Autism at Work program, many of you know, SAP is looked up as the leader when it comes to how did we drive this in the organization, and today other GCCs are taking it forward. So when I said our vision is centered around building innovations for the world, centered around our people, driven by purpose, I totally mean that, right? So
in broader outside of SAP, for other companies also, what did you be your advice, or other companies that are setting it up, the challenge?
Like I said, right, it's always important that you look at the best practices that worked for the others and build upon them, because finally it's only together that we can become even more better, even more stronger, even more greater as a community. And if we all continue to operate in our silos, we'll never get there, right? So that will be my key message. Let's really work on building upon each other's strengths, be it in disability, be it about women in leadership, be it about young entrepreneurs, whatever be it, right? I think we really have to lean on each other and make sure that we learn the best, and we don't have to go through the usual paths, right? Thank you for your question.
We love to take more questions, but it's kind of time's up. It's showing in the red color to me. But, conversation's amazing, Sindhu. Definitely the conversation can continue for another hour. So much of information and very valuable to me as a moderator as well. Definitely valuable to everybody. Love listening to you. Thank you very much again coming down from Bangalore to Chennai and spending the time with us.
Thanks so much. Thank you, Kevin. Thank you so much. Thanks, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you, Sindhu. Thank you, Kevin. So, thank you for fueling the economy for almost more than 2 decades. And this really gives us and creates trust for the more upcoming GCCs. I see a lot of new GCC leaders who are setting it up out here. So, that really helped them. So, yes, with that, we're moving on to the next session. So, uh, we are going to call upon the person who has been dwelling and researching on more of the GCC reports that you have been seeing. And just to continue the momentum, I would like to make a panel, which is the most expert panel, where I would like to call Mr. Pari Nadarajan, the CEO and co-founder Zinov, to the stage. And Pari has about 25 plus of extensive experience. He's driven the globalization and technology vision for over 250 Fortune 500 enterprises and consulted with global private equity firms to chart the growth and the value creation strategies across their portfolio companies. Welcome you, Pari. And the next panel member is Ms. Uma Ratnam Krishnan. So, welcome Uma Ratnam Krishnan, who is the managing director of Optum Global Solutions India. Across her career, she has taken on global roles, ability to shape up transformation in organizations. Over last 18 years, she had several senior leadership roles in UK and India across finance and commerce sectors like Barclays, Polaris, and ABN AMRO. Welcome, Yuma. And the next panel is Dr. Subramaniam Ramakrishnan. So, is the Vice President at UPS Technology Center in India. Subbu's leadership is marked by his commitment and his innovation to excellence for the Technology Center. With his career spanning over 25 plus experience in multinational corporates, a key highlight in the professional journey is the tenure as a director of IBM, where he led a significant global projects, championed quality certification processes. Happy to welcome Subbu. So the next panel member is Mr. Neeraj Sinha, who is a site lead and the head of Global Finance Services Standard Chartered of GBS with a more than 30 years of experience. He also, in addition, heads a role as a Chennai site lead for the GCC leadership of NASSCOM. Welcome, Neeraj. And the next and the last panel is Mr. Debashish Nyogi, the Managing Director of Renault Nissan Technology Business Center, with about dedicated 10,000 plus strong workforce he has built from the scratch. And Debashish has worked with several automotive India leaders like Bajaj Autocase and New Holland Tractors, Tata Cummins, and the General Motors in various functions like powertrain, engineering, embedded software, CAE, and the list goes on. With about 35 years of experience, such a heavyweight profile, Debashish, happy to invite you on the stage. So there you have a very diverse panel in front of you. So happy to hand over the toughest job to you, Pari.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. It was inspirational to hear Sindhu, as always. It was great session, and gave a very good perspective on what's happening in the GCC ecosystem. And we have some great set of leaders today with us. And let me start with introduce myself. I'm CEO of Zinov. One of the practices to help companies design their global GCCs, help them set up, manage, as well as transform those GCCs. So that's what we do for a living. And we also do work with NASSCOM very closely to drive the annual GCC report, set the goal in terms of how the GCC ecosystem should grow. GCC, like Sindhu mentioned, is not new. It's been there for a long time. In fact, the largest company came out of Chennai, the IT services company came out of Chennai, Cognizant, was in fact a GCC from Dun & Bradstreet. That's how the industry started. Look at one of the largest BPO services company, Genpact. Genpact was GE's analytics GCC, which got transformed into a services company. So the GCC ecosystem has been around for the last 20 years. So the IT services, think of IT services as the first pillar. Think of the next pillar, it's a startup ecosystem. The Flipkart founders came out of GCCs. They learned about how to work for global technology, global customers. They came out and started their own startups. There are startup accelerators which are run by companies like SAP and others where the startups learn how to understand customers. So GCC played a significant role in creating the second pillar of the Indian tech ecosystem. And GCC is what we call as the third pillar of the tech ecosystem, right? And a very important part of the overall growth of India over the last 20 years. And each of this company, we have some interesting panels. We have folks from the logistics business, from the healthcare business, from banking, from automotive. One of the interesting things happening in the GCC ecosystem is it grows when the market is good. When the market is good, everybody wants to grow their talent. They look at GCCs to grow the talent. The market is tough for the last 2 years. Even then, the technology continues to accelerate. Digital transformation continues to accelerate. Everybody wants to reduce or optimize cost. So GCC again becomes a solution for the continue to grow. So GCC in some level is recession proof, and that's what we have seen over the last several years. So what we are going to do is over the next, we have about an hour, understand about what is happening in GCC from different industries. What are some of the common thread which runs across all of these industries? And how have these leaders transformed the centers to drive significant value for their companies? And also why Tamil Nadu, why Chennai, and why other parts of Tamil Nadu? And why is it a critical part of the overall growth in GCC? So those are the areas we are going to start. And we will dive into questions. And what I want to do is start with each of you. Talk a little bit about the evolution of your center here and what does it mean for your company. Uma, we start with you, one of the largest global healthcare company.
Thank you, Pari. Delighted to be here, and it's such a great set of colleagues and peers from the industry. So Optum India is a health innovation global capability center of United Health Group, which is actually a Fortune 5 company. The mission of the company is about helping people live healthier lives and making the healthcare system work better for everyone. Now, this is an important one because everything that the GCC does is actually driven towards that, and sort of takes me back to what Sindhu was saying, right? Driven with a purpose and built with a purpose. So this was the overriding mission. So as a result of that, the work that we do, whether in the GCC or in our global teams, is really about simplifying, making transparent, making it more accessible, and making it more affordable. Everything that we do is really centered around that. From an India perspective, we've been here over 2 decades, and we've actually become scalable. We are a very important partner for the global enterprise. What we've taken advantage of is the actual operational and healthcare expertise on one side, and data and analytics and technology on the other, because as you'll see going forward, technology and healthcare is going to get more and more entwined. In India, we're in 5 locations. I'll start with the south, given we're sitting here. We're in Chennai, Bangalore, Hyderabad, Gurugram, and Noida. In Chennai, we've been here more than 15 years. I think what drives the GCC in India and what drives Optum India is 3 pillars of what is really important for our people, which is caring for our people, connecting the people to each other, right? Because again, we have a big ecosystem here, and giving them the best possible opportunities and then helping them grow together. So that's been our journey today. Talk a little more as we go along.
So Uma, one of the things what Sindhu mentioned is about end-to-end product ownership from here. Are you focused only on technology, or are you looking at other aspects of the business?
We actually do work across the spectrum. We do healthcare operations, we do analytics, we do technology, we connect. For us, it's really about what's the end outcome. And actually, all of this technology and the operations is actually interconnected so that we get the right outcome for the consumer. And consumer and healthcare is becoming more and more at the center of everything we're trying to do. So it's about using all the levers and putting it together. So even in the India world, we look at it that way, working both globally and across the India teams to actually be more connected, both with technology, operations, analytics, and so on.
Got it. So pretty much every part of the organization has a representation here.
Yeah. But we look at it as what's the outcome.
Got it. Debashish, going into you, Renault Nissan has been here in India for a long time, in Chennai for a long time, and almost co-located with the manufacturing capability, what you have, and the engineering capability. Tell us a little bit about the evolution of the organization.
So first of all, good afternoon to all of you, and really honored to be in the August company of industry captains, especially on GCC side. So Renault Nissan Technology and Business Center has been in existence since 2008. So we are completing 15 years of existence. And this year,
Congratulations.
thank you very much. And this year we crossed 10,000 workforce landmark. So in 10,000, we have close to 5,000 people working on core automotive technologies, both for local and global market. And then the remaining 5,000 is split into technology, ISIT, and global business services. Close to 1 in 2 persons are dealing with deep tech technologies like AI, ML, AR, VR, data, cloud migration. And on engineering side, we are responsible for the local market. So we have iconic cars like Quid, Kiger, Triber, Magnite, made in India. And we worked completely in our center to put these cars on the road. And we are also working on global products, supporting global centers for cars which will be launched in Japan, Europe, and North America. So we are very much a technology company and a product company. Today, as we stand, we are one of the biggest centers outside Japan and France for technical capabilities. And we are pan-India. We have centers in Bangalore, Hyderabad, and our mother center is Chennai, of course, from where we began.
Great, great story. And 10 years ago, I was talking to one of our German customers, it's in the telecom industry, and asked him, when do you think India will be able to do an end-to-end car very similar to the German quality? And his answer was never. And now you are saying that you're able to deliver end-to-end cars completely from here. Amazing. Going into Neeraj, and you're from a different industry, you have a lot of technology, capital, digital banking, crypto, and a lot of new technology adoption happening in banking. And tell us a little bit about Standard Chartered's evolution in India.
Thank you, Pari, and good afternoon, everyone. So, Standard Chartered probably has been one of the oldest and probably at this point the largest GCC across in Tamil Nadu and Chennai. If I go back slightly into history, we established ourselves in 2000. At that point in time, the headcount was about 700. We started off with very basic operations.
Started 2000. Optum, when was Optum started?
2001.
Okay,
Yeah.
just
Just
maybe by a year.
Just by a year. So, yes, so we started with about 700 people with very basic finance, operations, and technology processes, things which could easily be migrated at that point in time. Since then, we have grown quite substantially. At this point in time, we are spread across about 5 countries, but still quite heavily skewed towards India from a delivery and a headcount perspective. So we have about 27,000 people in India right now, of which 17,000 are in Chennai, another 10,000 in Bangalore. Now, from a spread of work which we are doing at this point, a large part of it, as you're rightly calling out, sits under technology. So most of the technology developments, but also technology support for the entire banking products across the globe sit from here. The other part, obviously, which we are involved in is banking operations, which includes trade, cash, client service centers, and so on and so forth. Apart from that, we are also into various function supports. So entire finance structure sits here. The entire human resources back office sits here. Cybersecurity, global risk teams, all of them are actually housed within the GCCs. So from that perspective, I think as I look back in the journey, I think we pretty much, I would say, are one of the pioneers here, but also in a lot of ways representative of how the GCCs have actually grown over the period of time. But the next set, obviously, which we are again looking forward to is by 2025, we are looking at consolidating all our Chennai operations into a single location in DLF downtown Taramani, which will house about 740,000 square feet of futuristic campus, I would say. Looking very heavily into people-centric or people-focused structure, which will look after people's wellness, which will look after productivity, which will look after a lot more of employee engagement. but a lot more of state-of-the-art setup which we're looking at. Coincidentally, that also then, in the entire scheme of things, becomes the largest office for us in the entire Standard Chartered Bank globally. So quite a few things to look
Largest
forward to.
single facility for Standard Chartered anywhere in the world is in Chennai.
Yes, it
Wow,
will be
okay.
at that point in time in 2025.
Great. And so we have 2000, 2001, 2008, 2023. Go ahead, Subbu.
Okay, before that, let me ask the way Sindhu asked, how many of you know UPS? Okay, that's really heartening because when I told my mom, I was with IBM for about 26 years.
You might want to ask them to know the full form.
Yeah, yeah, I'm coming to that. So when I told my mom I'm joining UPS, she was very thrilled. Okay, and she was very happy, and she said, finally someone in-house who can fix our UPS. Okay, so that was the reaction. So I have this challenge in explaining to somebody, what UPS does. It's United Parcel Service, a 116-year-old company. Just to give an order of magnitude, the size of our functions, we move about 20 million packages every day. That's about 6 billion packages a year, about 600 flights anytime, every day flying out. By airlines, we are the 7th largest airlines. Okay, with a 150,000 trucks out there. In terms of value of the goods that we move 2% of the world's GDP every day, right? So you can imagine the impact that this logistics operation has. But while these are the economic and the business impact, at the heart of it, what moves the packages around is the technology, right? So that's where the technology center comes in, and we are the newest kid in the block. So what I'm amazed is at the pace at which, while we say it's a 116-year-old company, the pace at which we move. We took this decision sometime in the fourth quarter of 2022, right? And then in March, we went and announced saying we are going to start this. And guess what? August 28th, our Founders Day, we started. And I'm pleased to say in 4 months, we are 300 plus folks. And if all goes good, we should be 1,000 plus by the next Founders Day. So that's the pace at which we are planning. And thanks to the abundant talent that's out there and the ecosystem that's out there. So that's what we do in UPS.
And why Chennai?
That's a good question. So why Chennai? One, I am from Chennai, but I had nothing to do with this decision. Okay, I had nothing to do with this decision. The decision was taken and then I moved in. But one of the things is the diverse talent that we have. It's not that we are just assembling a team of techies out here. So we need people who understand warehouse management, people who understand inventory, people from manufacturing background and all of that, right? So you have a diverse talent pool that's out here, which brings in both the domain and the technology here. So that's one of the thing. And the other thing, as I obviously said, thanks to guidance, I'm not saying because I'm here, but we were able to move things pretty fast. In 3 months, we were able to get the ground breaking and start our operations. So the speed at which, we are able to execute things and some of the incentives as well, for skilling as well as, it's an R&D center that we have set up. The interesting thing is it's not just the techies, we are moving in the business functions as well along so that, it's easier, to the point that you mentioned, we can infuse technology easier when we had the business folks like the marketing and the finance all sitting in the same floor, and we are also moving in engineering capabilities into the center. So that's where the diverse talent pool is making location very attractive.
And the talent you hired till now, you were able to find those talent locally in Tamil Nadu?
Yes, we are able to, and what we are also doing is we are tapping into. In fact, day one when we started the company, we said we gave internship letters as well, right? So we didn't have enough of the senior talent and all of them in-house, but we said it's our commitment that we partnered with the Non-Mudalvan program that's run by the state, and we on the stage of inauguration when we had the Honorable CM, we gave internship offer letters as well, and those guys are working with us. So what we are doing is we are working with some of the universities, trying to build in that logistics domain and the technology domain that we would need and bringing them. The other interesting thing also we quickly did, within 3 months is the returnship program. We could see quite a few people, who want to come back. We named it Palam Bridge, to get them back to the career. And of course, we have a lot of senior talent that we have brought in from the state.
Yeah, so very, very interesting to always hear about the new. And you're also, seems like what Sindhu mentioned, learning from the best practice of what others have done and able to accelerate.
You learn from your customer or competition. So just
Absolutely. And Uma, you talked about the diverse type of work and the or what you're looking at is that really deliver the outcome for the company. If you have to distill the impact you're able to create to the headquarters, to the companies, what are the impact the GCC able to create over the last 20 years?
That's a lot of question, but I'll try and give you a headline. So before I get off, I think just wanted to add a comment to what Subbu said, which is I think this is one group, the GCC group, which is actually very open, interactive, and learns from each other. And I think all of us have benefited from this. And I hope that continues to grow given the growth that we're going to see. I mean, Sindhu talked about 60 billion. There's things saying we're going to become 110 billion by 2030. So all of that needs a lot of collaboration, and I hope it stays that way. So coming back to the whole what Optum in India has done and delivered and the big impacts, right? So we've gone through the same journey of GCC 1.0, 2.0, 4.0, right? Now, clearly started as labor scale arbitrage, then went into, okay, you can deliver at scale, so that's great. So here are some other things that you can do. And then got into the whole bit around ownership and product development and all of those good things. And clearly, our objective is to get to a stage where a lot of the innovation, and there is a lot going on in the healthcare space, and I'll come to that in a minute, where we can be an integral part of that. The way we look at it is we want to kind of co-pilot with Mothership or the global enterprise some of these key areas. And let me just point out 4 key areas which we think how we've added value, and I'll take a few examples of that. So the first one's really about consumer centricity. I spoke about the fact that the consumer has become really important in healthcare. The patient as consumer has become really important to healthcare. And therefore, how we actually think about the outcome for that consumer is really, really important. So one of the things that we are doing is making sure we get perspectives across the entire ecosystem for healthcare and make sure our people understand what that means. So how does a person feel? Do they have dread when they have to when they have a health setback? What is it that really needs to be done for them? So whether it's, we can talk about process improvement, business process getting better, but the outcome eventually, how does it feel to the person who's going either to the healthcare provider or getting an insurance approved? How does that experience feel? So I think one of the things that we're front and center of what we've done is putting, even with our teams here, putting that consumer at the center of everything we do. And there are a few ways in which we do it, right? The second thing is really expanding digital horizons. I spoke about it briefly. A lot of the work we do, we collaborate with both our business stakeholders globally, the consumer, as well between the technology teams, product teams, operations teams, to actually use digital. Now, and let me say, at Optum, I think doing digital is not just about one more app, right? Because you get so many apps, and that's not what you want. It's really about how can we connect all of the key players in the system, which is the insurance payer, the healthcare provider, the patient, the clinicians who are actually prescribing medicines who are not part of big healthcare systems, eventually, so that process gets seamless. So that's really our sort of vision for how we want to move digitally from a healthcare space. And that is going to really need us to use all the capability that we have in the India team, or indeed anywhere in the global team, but significantly in India. The third bit I'll talk about is specific talent, right? So a lot of us are speaking about talent. But I think what we sometimes probably don't use to the fullest extent is some of the domain expertise that this talent can bring to the table. Healthcare in particular. We've used healthcare capability, but it's about nurturing this talent and doing the best we can to actually build.
Healthcare in India is different from healthcare in the US. So how does the domain translate?
Yeah. So the domain is different. The processes are different. But I think what we do is really help that talent understand the healthcare ecosystem. And we do it by a million different ways, myriad ways, including virtual. So we have one of our most recent training curriculums where we get our people to spend half a day virtually with 80 to 85-year-olds. I mean, we can't imagine how the life of an 80 and 85-year-old would be unless you actually see them in action. You don't know what empathy that they need. You don't know how you're going to actually interact with them. So the biggest thing for us with talent is we are an always learning on company. And that's really important for us because it's evolving very quickly as well. Right? So
one of the skill you're looking for is curiosity, I guess, so the talent you're looking for.
Completely. Not just curiosity. We have clinical people who review this. How do they understand how a clinician on the other side can actually do this? So we've actually got simulated clinical reviews. So this whole thing about outcome for the patient as consumer, and therefore, using our technology, particularly in the GCCs, collaborating. And the whole thing is about, and we spoke a lot about global leadership, right? Product ownership. I think one of the things for us in the healthcare space, yes, you can drive products, but I think we are so particular that we will work as a global team, right? Because that's what brings out the best for the end consumer in the healthcare space.
Got it. Thank you, Uma. And to Debashish, all of the others in this room, their headquarters are in English-speaking country, and US in 2 different countries, in Japan as well as France. And how is it to work for a globally distributed company, first of all, and the kind of impact you have been able to create in industry and automotive? We talk about software all the time, right? Indian tech industry is included as full stack developers. But you talked about material science, automotive engineering. How are you able to create impact to your headquarters?
So very good question, because in our center we are working for 3 global car companies. One is Nissan, headquarters in Japan, Renault, headquarters in France, and Mitsubishi have started working as Mitsubishi has collaboration with Renault and Nissan. So as Sindhu said, for leaders and for people, we should have, of course, the analytical quotient, the emotional quotient, all goes hand in hand. But cultural quotient is very important to work across geographies. And some of our work is global in nature. So we are interacting with teams across the world. And we are working in different time zones. So basically, we are a part of the extended team. So it's very important that we are able to work across cultures. And that's where that is a skill in itself, which one has to imbibe in order to work cross-functionally. Now, coming to the evolution which we faced. Initially, in 2008, we were responsible for our local market. Adaptations to the local market, meeting the customer requirements of India. As we went along, we started making products tailor-made for India. So that's how the Quid, the Kiger and Triber came into picture, where we could do complete end-to-end development, right from concept till production for the Indian market. Of course, getting supported with the corporate. Looking at the successful launch of these cars and how the market accepted it, we started doing global activities. That's how the trust started developing.
So you're not set up as a GCC in some level. You set up for supporting the local market and then became.
And then we scaled up our capabilities, our skills, our ability to do complete product development. And that's now today, I'm very proud that our engineers are working on the cars which will be launched in Europe and Japan in 2025 and 26. With one of the latest technologies like electrification, connected cars, services in the car, So that's how has been our journey. Very important as a GCC center is that we should be able to scale up, but also scale up. That's first success condition. Second is we get work in India. We should not forget that we are competitive. In the end, we are able to develop the car or any product almost at half the cost. So we need to keep the competitiveness. That means we have to be efficient. We have to use technology and we have to use all our means to be productive year on year and keep on improving our performance so that we are able to give productivity year on year to offset the inflation. So competitiveness is key. Good quality output at the right time is very key. These are the basics. If you don't do this, the trust will not get developed. Then, of course, then comes the technology part. Car is the internet on wheels, as we say, or software on wheels. So, of course, India is known for ISIT. So, we are also playing a big role in putting all the software technologies in the cars, the connectivity in the cars. So that's where our value addition has started coming in, that we are doing much more than just conceiving a car. We are putting technologies in the car, and we are like a campus. So the software engineer and the mechanical engineer, the electrical, electronic engineer are all working together to put the technologies on the car. And that too in an extended way, working with global teams. That's how we are working. So
So
as we say,
you have mechanical, embedded, software engineer all
exactly.
together.
It's like we call it in the French term called as plateau. Plateau means it's like a team where all the domain specialists are working along with the project leaders in order to conceive the product. And then we work with global teams hand in hand. So it's like a project plateau with having teams in India and in France or Japan all working as one team to conceive a global product.
Yeah,
So that's very important,
very
to work as a
interesting.
team and have the cultural quotient.
And some of these technology are very new, right? If you look at advanced driver assistance, if you look at AI coming in, how is that? How are you able to build the trust for the headquarters to give those kind of core work to the center here?
Actually, we work on very in-depth skilling up programs. And of course, we also develop local technical leaders. That means we have a trainer for the trainers. So the person is sent abroad, he or she understands the technology, works hand-on a project in our corporate centers. Then once he comes back, around that person will build the team. That's how we master domain by domain, technology by technology.
The movement of talent between the locations is very critical.
Exactly. And then, of course, we have the young talents coming from the colleges. So we are working very closely with academia to have industry-specific curricula. For example, electrification is a big thing happening in India. So how we can have electrification modules in the third year and fourth year of the curriculum? Or can we have EV mobility as an MTech course so that we can get postgraduates? So a lot needs to be done in terms of intake of talent as well as existing talent, how we skill up.
Yeah, it's great to see the GCC ecosystem actively working with the academia and developing the talent in the local ecosystem in Tamil Nadu. Thank Devashish. So Neeraj, going into your impact, and if you look at where the startups are creating a major challenge for the large companies, is really in banking. Right? Pretty much in any area, there's a new fintech company with crypto and Bitcoin coming in. It's also disrupting a traditional fiat-based currency. So many major disruption happening. And what is the role of GCC in enabling Standard Chartered navigate some of the challenges?
Okay, that's going to take a lot of time for me to answer, but I'll try it.
Yeah, like 2 minutes.
Yeah, okay. I'll keep it short. So see, in a banking sector, disruption is going to be the way of life. I don't think we can see it any other way. That being said, I think the way the startups, especially the fintechs we keep comparing ourselves with, probably have a different landscape in which they're operating, because they're still less governed compared to banks for all practical purposes, and therefore the arena in which they would actually operate would be slightly different. So at this point, I think the one thing which I'm actually sensing and seeing a lot, even for us, is the kind of collaboration we are actually working with in terms of banks and the fintech organizations, rather than competing with them, right? And I think that probably is a scenario which is actually coming up time and again for us. For the same reason which I said, I mean, the areas of operation seem to be slightly different. Now, that being said, in terms of the actual contribution of what we are also seeing back with our respective larger organizations, or HQ as you called it, there is a lot of things which are actually happened and built up locally here for us, right? So the entire innovation hub, for example, sits here with us. The innovation hub, I can give you two extreme examples. If I'm looking at my client base, because of the scale at which we have, a very large component of the data sits here, which means that we have the ability to analyze what's going on behind the scenes for markets, for retail customers, and so on and so forth. In that scenario, we do figure out very quickly what are the areas which are, through sheer analytics, what are the areas which are not working for the clients, even before sometimes the customers actually come back and tell us. Right? And those are the areas where we actually keep working on evolving. Simple things like automation of loan fulfillment for us, or let's say return of documents for partial payments of collateral securities, in terms of revising rate of interest in certain cases. All these things, debit card or credit card sort of issuance, all of these have actually become automated for a large part for us. And these by itself, when we talk about competition, we have reduced this internally in terms of scale from something like at about turnaround time for anything from 5 to 7 days into a matter of minutes, right? 3 minutes, 4 minutes, 5 minutes is what we take as a turnaround time for a lot of these scenarios. So on one side, when we talk about in-house automation, that's one extreme. The second is what we are actually doing for our own employees, right? And we encourage like a lot of thought leadership around that as well. Again, a very simple, very different scale of example. You can imagine for about 27,000 people locally, the kind of, let's say, IT accessories we would actually dispense, right? It's a huge mammoth exercise, a huge sort of effort behind the scenes which it takes. Our own workforce enablement team sort of came up with the idea, the local IT team came up with the idea that why don't we sort of build up a normal dispensing machine for a lot of these things. And suddenly we realized that we had a lot of dispensers across the bank, not just here, but because we got it done here and it actually worked.
Some of the process improvements you're doing here now become a global standard process for the company.
Correct. And they are being replicated across in Singapore, UK, and so on and so forth. Small things, but it actually sort of acts as a sandbox for sort of small testing here, even for small markets in a lot of cases, which then gets rolled out for larger scenarios. So that's one side of it. The other side of it is that when I look at our evolution, we have 13 plus bank-wide, pan-bank centers of excellence sitting right here in the hub, right? And that sort of practically controls everything which we are doing across the globe for the entire bank.
These are global centers of excellence in technology or process.
Correct. So they're sitting here, but they are actually sort of monitoring the entire global, or they take charge of the entire global requirements. Similarly, when we talk about, let's say, capabilities, right? We are talking about a lot of housing a lot of, let's say, analytic capabilities, cybersecurity capabilities, risk management capabilities. So there are a lot of these things which are actually coming up time and again, which tells us that the evolution or the sort of presence which we have made or an impact which we are making in joint collaboration with the larger bank, that's actually quite high at this point.
Yes, it's. Thank you. So it's very interesting. Like all of you talked about impact, and nobody talked about cost saving. Everybody talked about patient impact, customer, new innovation arbitrage, leadership, getting a car in the market, learning domains, building a car for different markets. It's impressive that just in a very short period, if you asked this question 10 years ago, people would say the results would be, oh, I'm saving $20 million for the company, $50 million for the company. But that was not even in your in the narrative.
Probably there's a reason for it, because I think if you look at the GCC landscape, two factors I believe now have become hygiene, right? Cost and service. I don't think you can actually compromise in any shape or form, and that becomes the base or the platform on which the other things are built up.
That's the advantage, foundational advantage you have, and you build on top of that.
Correct. So those, I mean, pretty for all practical purposes, are considered as hygiene factors for us.
Got it.
Yeah.
So Subbu, based on you heard from all of them, you are the baby of this block. Yeah. So what are you going to do different? What's your ambition in terms of type of work you're going to do?
So probably I'll go back to, we are called GCC, right? I don't know, before this we were called GIC, and prior to that captives. I don't know what we will be called a couple of years from now. So it also shows the continuum of the whole evolution. But I like the way we changed from GIC to GCC, at least in the IT space. When you see the evolution of companies before they set up their own captives, they have already tested waters with other service providers, right? So they know that it works offshore, it works remote, it can be done, and then they want to set up their own shop, right? So that's how the evolution happens. So when that evolution happens, if we keep calling this as in-house capability, then there is always a comparison. Oh, I could have outsourced, but I could also insource, right? So the GIC
comparison to a tech services company.
Exactly.
Okay.
So at least in the tech space, the comparison always happens that, okay, this is another alternative to the outsourcing operations, right? But that's not. So what we have consciously done is we are naming ourselves as UPS Technology Center, period. It's a technology center. There is a technology center in US, there is a technology center in Europe, there is a technology center
What is
in
the
India.
unit of all of this called together?
UTG, UPS Technology Group.
Okay.
So the UPS Technology Group has 3 technology centers, because if we keep driving this, that this is GCC, this is something different. No, this is not something different. So this is as good as whatever happens anywhere
From
else.
day one, you're setting it up as very similar. Okay,
Yes.
perfect. Yeah.
So that's one of the thing. And the second thing, there is always a positive thing in anything that happens, right? Good or bad. So the pandemic happened, right? So the good thing about this pandemic is, at least in the tech sector, whatever hitherto jobs we thought could be done only sitting closer to the client, right? Be it the design or the product managers and all of those, anyway, they are remote, even in US.
So everyone is equidistant from everybody else.
Yes. So that way, it has really accelerated moving of roles here. So pretty much, it's blurring, and what we are consciously doing is, with this all this agile development and all of that, single planning interval across these centers that we are running. So pretty much, when we have standardized the roles, when we have standardized the expectation of what to, get from that specific role or pay grade or whatever, it's a standard team that I can assemble from any of the tech center and still deliver. And in the process, what has happened is, effectively, my development window has gone up to 17 to 18 hours a day, right? Literally, I could span 6 days a week, because these are 3 distinct time zones. So playing the time zone
So
advantage.
we have spent about 45 minutes. We have not used the word Gen AI, so I have to ask you that. So how is Gen AI helping in the global distributed development? Is it making it easier to transition work?
It's making it easier, but it's a little too early for me to comment. But we have started something on Gen AI, as well as some of the automation, what we call as the network of future, where we try to bring in a lot of automation on our smart package and smart facilities. It's in the cards.
Great. And the other question I want to just start with, Uma, is you talked about patient experience, customer experience, and the patient experience is very different in the US versus here, right? And how do you ensure your talent is able to understand the customer deeply? And without understanding customer deeply, it's very difficult to create global roles, global impact. What is the process? Are there things which work, things that's not worked for you?
Yeah, I touched on a couple of them earlier, but I think we simply follow 3 things, right? The first one is, can we make sure that our people really understand what the consumer is going through and wanting, right? And we do it in different ways, whether we listen to conversations with the customer, simulations with clinicians, virtual spending time, all of those things. The second thing is, and that's a continuous process because things change, right? So we keep making sure that they actually are updated. It's always on learning. It's different types of learning. So we keep sort of reinventing the way we get them to experience the US healthcare consumer in different ways. And then, of course, there's all the standard training. So training is one sort of big block, right? The second one is really important, is the fact that we have a very strong, so because the business has a very widespread, it has healthcare providers, it has consumers, it has small clinics giving, there are pharmacies, there's a very, very big ecosystem. So we make sure that there is collaboration between the teams sitting in India and our global teams, whether they're product people, whether they're clinicians on the road. So we just make sure that they work very closely, whether it's conversations, and we actually still do quite a lot of physical visits. I know a lot of stuff is remote now, but this is one of the reasons we still do a lot of physical interaction with folks coming in from our different parts of the business as well as here. The last one I'll say, and this is also one of the reasons why, in Chennai, we have a presence which we're looking to deepen and grow, is because we have a huge wealth of talent that's sitting in the non-engineering space. I know every role is about technology and engineering and all of that, but we shouldn't forget that we have arts and science graduates. And most of these science graduates, whether they come from pharmacy, biochemistry, biology, chemistry, whatever, and sometimes some clinical courses as well, not real full doctors, who have a really good understanding of who the body, what the body is, and what the conditions are. So, if you actually use that talent and leverage the talent for the domain expertise, and then build on top of that, with the training and then the U.S. healthcare system, that we find gives us a good competitive position.
Yeah, if you can understand the US healthcare system sitting in Chennai, you can understand anything else.
I agree. It's complicated. It's complex. But yeah, I mean, we're finding some really important and interesting niche skills which we believe we can develop. And going back, again, that's one of the areas we want to work with the government, with the academic institutions and training institutes to kick off some of the niche skill development in the medical area. Where we can also demonstrate to people that healthcare careers are not just in hospitals.
So we're getting into, we have a few more minutes, and Devashish, you've been in Chennai, Tamil Nadu ecosystem for a lot of time, right? What are some of the advantages of the Tamil Nadu GCC overall ecosystem, and what does it mean for GCCs?
I think, needless to say, Chennai is known as the Detroit of the East. So already there was a big heritage of automotive talent, whether you call about OEMs like Renault, Nissan, Hyundai, Ford, but also the suppliers, the component suppliers, where the three major hubs in India, Chennai is one of them. But also the academic institutions, as we said, 150,000 engineers coming out every year from Chennai. So I think first is the readily availability of skills, the ecosystem of the suppliers who are providing the parts, systems, and technologies to the car. And the third is basically the innovative ecosystem which exists. One of the beautiful examples is IIT Research Park, where Renault Nissan has a research lab right inside the campus for advanced material studies of batteries. So the ecosystem is there. And
that's very unique to Tamil Nadu. I don't see other cities have such level of capability, innovation capability.
Yes, so I think there are other automotive companies like Daimler has recently opened a center inside the IIT Chennai campus. And of late, the ecosystem of startups. Also in automotive, it is very interesting to make prototypes, test the prototypes. We should have proving ground. So we have Global Automotive Research Center right in Chennai. We have the beautiful ecosystem of Coimbatore for prototype parts. And we have, so it gives a complete ecosystem to thrive the automotive development in the city. Right from availability of skills to making prototypes, testing prototypes, as well as the startup ecosystem which we have, and the innovation culture which are there. And one of the most demanding automotive customers are from Chennai. Most demanding. They will like to have everything in the car. And they are very knowledgeable about cars. So I think we have the customer base which is very knowledgeable also. So all in all, I think we have a beautiful setup here. Of course, we had to go to Hyderabad and Bangalore for specific talents on digital side or software side. But if you talk about the key center, for us, Chennai will continue to be the key center for us.
Yeah, I think the kind of capability you build, I'm pretty sure BMW or Volkswagen and others would also want to come here. And Neeraj, you are convinced your team to build the largest facility in Chennai in the world for Standard Chartered. So what are the advantages the company was able to see that they said, okay, let's go do this?
Okay, I think adding on to what Devashish actually mentioned, one of the things which we I think very quickly forget is that Tamil Nadu probably was one of the first states which formulated the policies for IT and ITAS, right? So I think from that, if you look at it from that lens, it's actually quite evolved infrastructurally and quite evolved in the way they've actually set up the entire ecosystem around it, right? So I think that's a big advantage for the state to begin with because we had an early start. Now, if I add on a few other things, infrastructure-wise, especially if I look at power backups, if I look at IT telecommunications, it's a very strong infrastructure here. If I look at the skill resourcing, a lot of cross skills which we are looking for exist here. But I think one of my sort of major reasons why we have actually sort of made sure that Chennai was actually still or continues to exist here is the attitude of the people, right? I mean, I just find that the stickiness for by an employee to a job is actually very high here. I mean, I just find that the attrition levels are much lower here compared to some of the other states.
Okay, so the culture itself helps.
Yeah.
And Subbu, coming to you, one of the things Uma mentioned about the vibrant GCC community here, who are helping each other, collaborating each other. How did you leverage as a new center? How are you leveraging that community?
So one is, of course, Guhan is right here, from NASCOM, who connects me. And, the way I could convince my management as well is they said, will you get logistics domain? I said, you get into my building, you step out of a floor, you will see Expeditors. Couple of floors later, you will see, Maersk. And then 2 more floors later, you will see UPS. Right? So all of these logistics guys are in the same building. So it's not that difficult to get the talent, per se. So the way, we are connected, and we help each other. We share
NASCOM plays a role in connecting.
In connecting us, right? So and all those roundtables and all that happens, that really helps.
Okay. Well, how else? How are the other ways you are able to leverage the best practice from others? Other areas you thought you didn't think about it before, and now that you are here, I'm asking this question largely for new companies thinking about setting up GCC in Tamil Nadu. How can they leverage the ecosystem here to get started quickly?
So I think, there are quite a few best practices that we see in the company, right? So one of the things I'll tell you, one big rallying cry in UPS is you belong at UPS, which is all about, diversity, equity and inclusivity and all of that. Without doing anything, okay, today we are 30% women workforce at work, okay? That's thanks to the huge gender neutral pool that comes out of the state. Every year you have, 4.5 lakh men and 4.5 lakh women graduating, right? So you need not do anything artificial, to be representative and all of that, right? So there is a natural population that is out there. So if you just do the right selection, you get there, right? So I leverage on some of the programs that already, programs are.
So the others have done development of that program, and then you're able to leverage it up.
So that's how it happens.
Great, and thank you, Subbu. We have over 5 minutes. We can open up for Q&A. Hi. Yeah, let's not make an assumption for people there, so you can maybe wait. Yeah.
Great session. Thanks, Barry. You've been part of this GIC captive, right, from a decade. You've been doing research. You're the go-to person for most of the captives in India. Tell us for Tamil Nadu, where are we? And you pulled out some points where we are, but then what we should be doing as a state to...
I think one of the things is these stories are not heard more. We have to have these stories out more often. And that itself will help more companies to come here, I think.
Where are we as a state in terms of GIC population, GCC population?
It's, I think I would say the third, probably the largest ecosystem, is one of the fastest growing GCC ecosystem in India. And we have seen that at least in the last 1 year, there is a lot more focus on companies when they'll evaluate GCC, they look at Chennai as one of the locations they want to evaluate. And more like what UPS has decided, we are sure that more companies will come in here over the next couple of years.
Spari, can I just add one thing to that? So I think Tamil Nadu and Chennai has a natural affiliation for automotive engineering, all of those, right? And then some financial services. I think with some of the stories, as he was saying, going out, it is definitely emerging as one of the more preferred centers for healthcare and medtech, in addition to Bangalore and Hyderabad. So, right, so it's a combination of, and then of course followed by NCR and Bombay and all of that. So I think there's opportunity there. So, but I would agree with him that the story needs to be told more.
Just I want to add one thing to gentleman's question. More than marketing what are the good things we are doing, also please market the policies which you have launched, because sometimes the awareness of policies are not there. So if the policies, the incentives which are there are made more open and accessible, it will help us. So we are a little bit in that discovery stage. So it will go a long way to promote more GCC in Tamil Nadu.
So I have one very fundamental question on GCCs. We know that last few years it is exploding. The growth is enormous. It's happening very well. There's a lot of job creation. It's happening. On the other hand, students going abroad, the number is exploding, right? Every year we see people going to US, Canada, Australia, UK, and various other emerging economies and doing various courses in data sciences. And the guys, those who are top brass, hardly they come back. They stay over there, right? And they're absorbed in high-end jobs and all, right? So what is your view? Basically, the jobs which are, I know in last 1 or 2 years or 3 years or maybe 5 years, there's high-end jobs are also coming under GCC fold over here. But vis-a-vis, you compare to emerged economies, there it's still very low. What's your view on that? Because what we are doing over here is a job which is maybe a
Yeah, so thank you for the question. So I'll give you one quick anecdote and then you can have others talk about it. One of our customers, when they go to IIT, they give them offer both for US and India simultaneously. And more than 50% of the students choose to take the India GCC offer than the US offer. And the number continues to increase every year.
no, yeah,
The
that I
talent
agree.
is, talent is seeing a lot more opportunity here, but anybody else?
Yeah, so see, the numbers could indicate that, right? And it's also a question of the job profiles of what one is looking at. I'll give you my own example in the Standard Chartered Bank. Every time there is a new batch which actually comes in, I address them directly. And one of my favorite questions is, how many of you have actually worked with Standard Chartered Bank before and are returning back? Very surprisingly, at an average, I get 20-25% hands raised every single batch which comes in back, right? So there is obviously that attraction factor which is there. But if I look at this parallelly in terms of the kind of jobs which is existing overseas versus here, sector to sector that will differ. Even for banking, a lot of people are actually trying to come back into the GCCs. Our own existing staff are actually looking for opportunities to come back. So if I look at my own bank, I think there is a very clear trend which actually gets established there. But like I said, sector to sector, it will differ because the kind of opportunities which will exist will be quite varied.
So do you have, Subbu, any plan on return to India type of program for your talent and UPS?
We do have. I mean, if somebody is interested and who they want to move in, we do support. And it's a little early for us, but we are planning for some of those.
All right. Thank you, everyone. It was great talking to all of you. I have learned quite a bit from each of you on what you're doing, what is possible from the Tamil Nadu GCC ecosystem. I'm pretty sure more and more companies will consider and set up the GCCs and drive global roles, global impact, global innovation from Tamil Nadu. Thank you.